Hello everyone, welcome back to another brand new video, and in today's video we will be doing yet another Jujutsu Kaisen What If. Today's What If is going to be a little bit different. Today we aren't just going to be swapping characters in and out of the Shibuya incident. Instead, today's What If will be, what if there was a 2v2 Jujutsu Sorcerers tournament? And with that, let's just hop right in with the setup for this very tournament. Alright, so the first order of business was to decide the duos of the tournament and making them as balanced as possible. Obviously, we aren't going to be seeing people like Gojo, Yuta, and Hikari here today, as they could probably solo every single duo here in the tournament, and of course, that wouldn't work, as the goal is to create the most balanced tournament possible. The duos that I ended up landing on are as follows: Yuji and Nobara, Megumi and Angel, Todo and Kamo, Panda and Inumaki, Meimei and Wiwi, Nanami and Eno, Kusakabe and Yaga, and Miguel and LaRue. I just want to point out that we will be rocking with Shibuya Yuji for today's tournament to keep the balance, and right before we begin, this entire bracket was chosen with a random number generator, and to make things even more interesting, I also picked out 7 locations for all of our matchups today, and they too were assigned at complete random. But without further ado, let's just jump into matchup number 1, which is Megumi and Angel versus Meimei and Wiwi, which will be taking place in the Jujutsu High Courtyard, the same place where Toji and Gojo fought for the first time in the Hidden Inventory arc. Let's first start by talking about the duo of Megumi and Angel. Megumi might be one of the strongest fighters in this very tournament. His 10 Shadows technique is one of those techniques that is extremely useful in these matchups due to just how dynamic it is. Nue can fly around to scout and cause aerial support. It can also carry around combatants for a brief time. The Divine Dogs have great offensive capabilities and tracking. The Toads are a great defensive tool. The Rabbits have their strength in numbers. The Snake can be used to wrap up opponents for an easy attack. And if Megumi can land the elephant on top of an opponent, it'll almost certainly turn the tides in his favor. Of course, Megumi also has a domain expansion, but it is an incomplete one where he needs to be in an enclosed space for it to have a barrier to work, and with the location of this matchup being a courtyard, Megumi's domain doesn't need to be discussed here. On to Angel. Angel is a blessing and a curse as a teammate. Her technique is that of technique extinguishment. Anybody in Angel's vicinity's Jujutsu will be completely extinguished without prejudice, meaning the Angel can cancel the Jujutsu of her opponents, but if Megumi is in the vicinity, his Jujutsu will get blocked as well. Angel is also a decent hand-to-hand fighter, and she, being an angel, has wings that help her fly around. Now, Meimei and Wiwi are an interesting duo. This is a duo that we see fight together throughout the series, but I don't know if a tournament is the best setting for these two to showcase their skills. Wiwi is a very useful tool for Meimei to use, but that's the thing. Wiwi is more of a tool for Meimei than he is a useful combatant. Wiwi's teleportation is a great support ability, however it's useful for running away from fights. It's not the same type of teleportation that can turn Boogie Woogie into an offensive powerhouse. Wiwi also has a simple domain, which is another useful ability to have, but in this matchup it's a complete non-factor. Wiwi also isn't a great combatant, so he's almost more of a liability for Meimei in this matchup than an asset. Meimei is a very strong grade 1 sorcerer. She is a very elite hand-to-hand combatant and she's extremely smart. Her technique of Blackbird manipulation is actually pretty useful in this matchup. The Jujutsu High Courtyard is a very open space, but there are some buildings around its potential hiding spots. However, Meimei will probably have eyes on the battlefield with her technique at all times. Another useful ability of Blackbird manipulation is that of Bird Strike. Meimei can make her bird slam into her opponent with a shit ton of force. So much force that Bird Strike has killed a special grade curse in one shot. Bird Strike, in fact, has killed every single person it's hit in one shot. Except Satoru Gojo, of course. Now, I do lean Megumi and Angel in this matchup. I think that Wiwi will end up getting taken out pretty early into this fight. Angel and Megumi both have great mobility and can stay away from Meimei's Bird Strike, and I think Megumi can string together an attack with his Shikigami to take out Meimei. I think if Meimei had a better teammate, she could take this one, but in this fight, I give the victory to Megumi and Angel. Our next matchup is Yuji and Nobara versus Inumaki and Panda, taking place in Sugisawa High School, aka Yuji's former high school. Now, I think what this matchup ends up hinging on is how much curse speech Inumaki can use. Curse speech is an incredibly useful technique in this setting, but how long can Inumaki utilize it? We see numerous times that when Inumaki uses curse speech, it basically destroys his throat, and he has to use his cough medicine to fix it. Some of the most useful phrases that Inumaki can use in this matchup are plummet, sleep, stop, and blast away. I think if he uses Plummet as soon as this fight begins, it would instantly kill Nobara, but Yuji would end up surviving and Inumaki wouldn't be able to use Curse Speech again. Is that a risk that Inumaki is willing to take? I'm not sure. Panda is Inumaki's teammate here, and he should be a useful one. He's a very good hand-to-hand combatant and a super durable one at that, which is a great asset to have when going up against one of the hardest hitters in Yuji. If things get dicey for Panda, he can go into Gorilla mode, and even still if things get bad, he can unleash his Triceratops mode, but that's something we can't really bring into this matchup unfortunately, as we don't know what Triceratops mode even does. Yuji is probably the best hand-to-hand fighter in this entire tournament. Not only is he elite in the field of hand-to-hand combat, he is one of, if not the hardest hitter here as well, and on top of that, he's also extremely durable. It's easy to say in a straight hand-to-hand fight, Yuji beats every single person here. Nobara will be backing him up here from a distance with her straw doll technique, using her homing nails to land on Inumaki and Panda to try and hit a hairpin or resonance attack. Yuji and Nobara are also both sorcerers who have landed black flashes in the past, so that might be something that comes into play in this matchup. I think Yuji and Nobara end up taking this one pretty comfortably. If Inumaki uses Plummet off rip and takes out Nobara, I still think Yuji can 2v1 Inumaki and Panda pretty easily. If Inumaki uses his curse speech more sparingly, hitting stops and sleeps on Nobara and Yuji at various times, I think he and Panda have a better shot to land some attacks and even take out Nobara, but even then, I still think Yuji can clean it up. Next matchup is Todo and Kamo versus Miguel and LaRue at the House of the Children of the Star, the place of Toji and Gojo's second matchup. Straight up, I will say immediately that this matchup will almost instantly become a 2v1 because Kamo is just not on the level of the other three sorcerers. Kamo has blood manipulation, but unlike Choso, it's at a limited supply. Even giving Kamo the complete benefit of the doubt, assuming he comes in as prepared as possible, I still think he gets washed by Miguel and LaRue, and here's why. LaRue's technique Heart Catch is extremely useful. Not only can it snatch opponents, it can also snatch somebody like Miguel away from dangerous attacks. LaRue also has the ability Cutie Honey, which grabs the attention of somebody who has been previously grabbed by Heart Catch. This is basically a free stun for LaRue. Miguel's technique Prayer Song is basically just a stat buff for him and a debuff for his opponents. Miguel is also a super skilled hand-to-hand fighter, one who was able to stand his own against Gojo for a short time, and he took a shit ton of shots from Gojo and was able to still keep on fighting. I just think that Kamo doesn't have the skills to dodge a Heart Catch or take clean shots from Miguel, even with his teammate in Todo having Boogie Woogie. Once Kamo is taken out, I think this matchup becomes extremely interesting, because I honestly think Todo can get this done. Not only is this environment very open and spacious, which is good for Boogie Woogie, I think Todo can easily manage to dodge Heart Catch and take out LaRue. In LaRue's fight with Sukuna, he basically gets one-shot by Sukuna, and while this is certainly defendable as he's literally fighting the strongest person in the verse, it does tell me that LaRue is certainly less durable than people like Choso and Maki, who also take clean shots from Sukuna. We also know that Todo is probably the second hardest hitter behind Yuji, and he's another sorcerer that we've seen hit Black Flash. I think what this matchup will come down to is Miguel versus Todo, and I personally lean Todo. Even with Miguel giving Todo a statistical debuff and he himself being a super durable and strong opponent, I just have faith in Todo to come up with something to take out Miguel. The one thing we haven't discussed is just how smart Todo is. He's the smartest person in this tournament by a landslide. He reads Hanami's entire moveset in less than a second when he fights her. With Todo having an on-par set of skills with Miguel in the hand-to-hand combat world, an incredibly useful technique in Boogie Woogie, and an insanely high fight IQ, I just have to give him this matchup. But if you think Miguel takes this one, I'm not going to fight you on it. Our final first round matchup is Nanami and Eno versus Kusakabe and Yaga at Yasuhachi Bridge. This might be our closest matchup yet, and I'm saying that after our last fight was a near coin flip. Nanami is one of those sorcerers that a lot of the community sees as weak because he gets low diffed by the disaster curses, and his technique is something that's kinda lame. However, this is a setting where Nanami thrives. Nanami has very good durability, and his ratio technique against sorcerers should be pretty insane. He also has his binding vow with overtime, and if for any reason this fight were to head into overtime, Nanami would be getting a tremendous buff. Nanami is also a sorcerer who has hit Black Flashes before, even holding the record of 4 simultaneous Black Flashes for a time. His teammate in Eno is significantly weaker, but still a useful support fighter here. It feels so good to finally know all 4 of Eno's auspicious beasts he can use. Kaichi is a sharp horn that floats around and has homing capabilities. Reiki is the black water one that basically increases Eno's mobility and defensive capabilities. Kirin is a painkiller but drains his stamina and makes Eno briefly immobile after usage, and Ryo is a huge dragon that comes out and crashes into its target. Eno is also a solid hand-to-hand fighter, but probably on the lower end of the tournament participants. Now, onto Kusakabe and Yaga. Kusakabe doesn't have an innate technique. He uses shadow style with his katana. He's an extremely skilled swordsman and is also great at hand-to-hand, as we saw him throw down with Sukuna. He also has a simple domain that can be used offensively, and Kusakabe is also extremely fast and has an ability that can restore his blade if broken, which could be useful against Nanami's ratio technique. However, Masamichi Yaga is an interesting combatant to discuss, as we don't actually know a lot about him. We can assume he's skilled at close range because he taught Panda how to fight, and we know Panda is great at that. We also know he is a grade 1 ranked sorcerer, which has to count for something. However, his drawbacks are the fact that his technique of creating cursed corpses is not a useful one for this setting. He needs time to create his corpses, and this is just not the place for that. We also know that Yaga lost to Gakuganji in a fight, and while Gakuganji isn't a bum, that also isn't a great look. I think that Eno can handle Yaga with his Auspicious Beast, and while those two fight, we get a Nanami versus Kusakabe matchup. Even though Nanami himself calls Kusakabe the strongest grade 1 sorcerer, I think that Nanami makes this matchup very close. Also, in that context, he's not calling Kusakabe the strongest grade 1 against other sorcerers, so there's that. Nanami's ratio technique, I would imagine, would be devastating on humans if it lands, and Nanami is somebody that uses a blade, so I think he can hang with Kusakabe for a little bit in a sword fight. And that's also the other thing in this matchup. Ratio works on non-living objects, so he can break Kusakabe's sword at some point, and while Kusakabe can regenerate his blade, I think Nanami can land something effective in the time between his sword breaking and being regenerated. Also, assuming that Eno takes out Yaga, I think he can come in and guarantee a Nanami victory, fighting at a distance with Kaichi, and if things truly get bad, using Ryu. Now it's on to the second round, kicking things off with Megumi Angel versus Yuji Nobara, taking place atop Shibuya Sea Tower. And my goodness, this is a terrible matchup for Megumi Angel. Angel's technique extinguishment is useless against Yuji, as he doesn't have a technique. Nobara's Straw Doll is incredibly useful at range. We see her take down a flying opponent in Momo with it, so Angel flying around shouldn't be a huge problem. Obviously, Megumi is a very dynamic fighter, and his 10 Shadows technique is a massive problem to overcome, but I think Yuji can handle it and take out Megumi. Yuji really only has to hit Megumi maybe 1 or 2 good times to take him out. I think Megumi could honestly take this matchup with his domain expansion, but with the location being a giant helipad on top of a roof, he is in the worst possible location to make that a reality, so I think Yuji and Nobara kinda just wash these two. Our second round matchup is Todo and Kamo versus Nanami and Eno in the Tombs of the Star. Once again, poor Kamo is probably cooked really quick here, but the silver lining is that Todo also probably takes out Eno really fast as well. Eno isn't the most durable guy in the world, and Todo can capitalize on that and blitz him really quick. I think this matchup turns into a Todo versus Nanami fight really quickly, and I easily favor Todo here. Boogie Woogie truly is just too good of a technique in these types of matchups. I just don't think Nanami can land anything of note on someone like Todo. Now onto the grand finale. The final matchup will be Yuji and Nobara versus Todo and Kamo in the Shibuya bathroom. And I'm so sorry, but this might be the worst location possible for the duo of Todo and Kamo. When I drew this location for the finale, I was initially super excited, but then after Todo and Kamo made it to the finals, I realized just how screwed they truly are. The sprinklers render Kamo's blood manipulation genuinely useless. He will be forced to go hand to hand here, where Yuji will take him out almost instantly. Todo's Boogie Woogie technique can obviously still be used, but in a small cramped space like this, it loses a lot of its strengths. I still think Todo can take out Nobara despite the uphill battle, and it'll come down to a straight brawl between Yuji and Todo. And me personally, I favor Yuji in this one. Not only does Yuji hit harder, he's the sorcerer most familiar with Boogie Woogie, and Yuji is the Black Flash King, and I think he has the potential to get lucky enough to land one here. There's definitely a world where Todo can pull this off if he gigabrains the shit out of Yuji, but I think his luck has finally run out, and we can declare Yuji and Nobara the winners of the 2v2 Sorcerer Tournament. Well, ladies and gentlemen, what did you all think? Did I get this right? Did I get it wrong? Let me know down below. If you enjoyed today's video, be sure to like and subscribe, and as always, have a wonderful day.